You wake up to the sound of sandaled feet marching across marble floors. Your first breath carries the scent of olive oil, incense, and the distant smell of blood from the gladiatorial games. Your father isn't just any man. He's Gaius Julius Caesar, the conqueror of Gaul, the man who crossed the Rubicon, the dictator who brought the Roman Republic to its knees. You're born into absolute power, but that power is built on the corpses of senators and the ashes of tradition. Your cradle is carved from Lebanese cedar, inlaid with African ivory. But outside your nursery, half the Roman Senate plots your father's death. From your earliest memories, you're surrounded by the sounds of conspiracy. Whispered conversations that stop when you enter rooms. Guards who watch each other as much as they watch for external threats. Senators who smile at your father's face while sharpening knives behind their togas. This is your inheritance. This is the price of Roman greatness. Your childhood is spent in the shadow of civil war. Your father isn't just fighting foreign enemies. He's fighting other Romans. Pompey the Great, once his ally, now his mortal enemy. Cato the Younger, defender of republican virtue. Marcus Brutus, descendant of the founder of the Republic. The very men who should be your father's colleagues are plotting his destruction. Your tutors aren't just teaching you Greek philosophy and Roman law. They're teaching you to recognize poison in wine and daggers in shadows, to read the loyalty in a man's eyes. To understand that in Rome, today's friend is tomorrow's assassin. You learn that power isn't inherited. It's seized, held, and defended every single day. Your father appears in your life like Mars himself descending from Olympus. Brilliant, charismatic, and absolutely ruthless. When he returns from Gaul, the entire city holds its breath. He's conquered territories larger than Italy itself, enslaved 1 million Gauls, enriched Rome beyond the dreams of previous generations. But he's also defied the Senate and challenged the Republic's most sacred traditions. He wears his purple cloak like a king, though Rome has no kings. He accepts divine honors, though Romans worship only gods. He rules through fear and charisma, though Romans value law and tradition. You watch from palace balconies as he addresses crowds that worship him like a deity. You see senators bow and scrape before a man they'd rather see dead. You witness the careful choreography of absolute power disguised as republican government. Your father notices you watching. He calls you to his private study, a room where maps of the known world cover every wall. You're 10 years old, barely reaching his shoulder, but his eyes hold the weight of empire. He places a golden laurel crown in your hands. This, he says, pointing to the crown, is what every Roman dreams of wearing. This, he says, pointing to a dagger on his desk, is what they'll use to take it from you. The question isn't whether you're strong enough to wear the crown. The question is whether you're ruthless enough to keep it. Your hands shake as you hold the symbol of ultimate Roman achievement. The laurel leaves feel sharp against your fingers. The gold is warm from his touch, but it feels cold with the weight of destiny. You understand even at 10 that you're holding your future and your doom simultaneously. Your education becomes systematic preparation for the inevitable. You learn military strategy from veterans of the Gallic Wars, political manipulation from the most cunning senators still loyal to your father, oratory from teachers who understand that words can be deadlier than swords. Your father teaches you that Roman power rests on 3 foundations: the army, the people, and fear. The army follows strength and success. The people follow spectacle and bread. Fear follows from the knowledge that resistance means death. You study the careers of great Romans who came before. Marius, who reformed the legions and died in his bed. Sulla, who retired from dictatorship and lived to regret it. Pompey, who won 3 triumphs and lost everything to your father. Each story contains the same lesson. In Rome, there's no middle ground between absolute power and violent death. By your 15th birthday, you've witnessed 6 major political assassinations. You've seen senators murdered on the Senate floor. You've watched popular tribunes torn apart by mobs. You've learned that Roman politics isn't debate. It's warfare by other means. Your coming-of-age ceremony takes place during the height of your father's power. He's defeated Pompey at Pharsalus, conquered Egypt and made Cleopatra his ally, returned to Rome as undisputed master of the Mediterranean world. The ceremony is attended by kings and queens from across the empire. But you notice what others miss. The tension in every smile, the calculation behind every congratulation. Rome's elite are measuring your father's strength and finding it mortal. They're waiting for the moment when the great Caesar shows weakness, and they're studying you as his potential successor and future target. Your father's triumph is magnificent and terrifying. Prisoners march in chains through Roman streets. Treasure from a dozen nations fills the public treasury. Exotic animals from Africa and Germany die in arena spectacles. But you see the cost hidden behind the celebrations. Roman soldiers who've spent decades fighting civil wars. Senators who've learned to fear their own government. People who cheer for bread and circuses while their republic dies around them. Your father has given Rome an empire, but he's killed the Roman Republic to do it. The conspiracy forms like storm clouds gathering on a clear day. You don't see it directly, but you feel the change in atmosphere. Conversations that die when you approach. Guards who seem more nervous than usual. Your father's closest advisors suggesting he cancel public appearances. The warnings come from every direction. Soothsayers claim the gods oppose his plans. Informants report suspicious meetings among senators. Even your father's wife begs him to stay home from the Senate. But Caesar doesn't hide from threats. He's faced down Germanic tribes and conquered Celtic warriors. He's not going to cower before a handful of aging senators with ceremonial daggers. On the Ides of March, your father leaves for the Senate against all advice. You want to go with him, but he orders you to stay home. Today, he says with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes, I find out whether Romans still remember how to be Romans. You never see him alive again. The news arrives like a thunderbolt from a clear sky. Your father is dead, murdered in the Senate, 23 wounds in his body, Brutus leading the conspiracy. The dictator who conquered the world, killed by men he trusted. You're 15 years old and suddenly the most dangerous person in Rome. Not because you're strong, but because you carry Caesar's name. Not because you're threatening, but because you represent continuity. Not because you want power, but because others will use you to claim it. The assassins made a fatal error. They killed the king but left the prince alive. They removed the tyrant but preserved the dynasty. They thought murdering Caesar would restore the republic. Instead, they created the conditions for empire. Your survival becomes a daily exercise in political chess. Mark Antony wants to use you to legitimize his claim to Caesar's legacy. Octavian, your father's grandnephew, sees you as a rival for adoption rights. The conspirators want you dead before you can grow into a threat. Foreign enemies see you as a potential puppet ruler. You're the prize everyone wants to claim and the threat everyone wants to eliminate. Your guardian spirits you away from Rome before the political situation explodes, but you can't escape your name or your inheritance. Letters arrive from across the empire. Veterans pledging loyalty to Caesar's son. Provincial governors offering military support. Client kings promising alliance against your father's murderers. The entire Roman world is watching to see what Caesar's heir will do. Your exile becomes an education in the realities of Roman power. You learn that your father's death didn't end his influence. His name still commands legions. His memory still inspires loyalty. His legacy still shapes political calculations. But you also learn that inheriting a legend isn't the same as becoming one. Your father earned his power through military genius and political cunning. You've inherited the burdens without earning the strength to carry them. The weight of expectation is crushing. Veterans remember Caesar crossing the Rubicon and expect you to show equal courage. Senators who survived your father's purges watch you for signs of inherited tyranny. People who benefited from Caesar's largesse hope you'll continue his generosity. Everyone wants something from Caesar's son, but no one asks what you want for yourself. Your attempted return to Rome becomes a disaster that defines everything afterward. You gather loyal supporters and march on the city, expecting to reclaim your birthright. But Rome in the post-Caesar era isn't the same city your father conquered. Antony has military control. Octavian has legal standing. The Senate has popular support. Your arrival sparks not celebration, but civil war. The battle is brief and decisive. Your improvised army, composed mainly of veterans loyal to your father's memory, faces professional legions led by experienced commanders. Courage isn't enough when you're outnumbered 3-1. Loyalty to the dead can't overcome superior tactics and fresher troops. Your forces are scattered, your supporters are captured or killed. You escape only because a centurion who served under your father chooses to let you go rather than capture Caesar's son. The failed coup attempt destroys any chance of peaceful succession. You're now officially an enemy of the state. Antony puts a price on your head. Octavian declares you a traitor to your father's memory. The Senate orders your arrest and execution. You've become what every Roman fears most, a failed pretender to imperial power. Your final years are spent in the shadows of the empire your father built, moving from city to city, using false names, depending on the charity of people who remember Caesar fondly. You watch from afar as Antony and Octavian divide your father's legacy between them. You see Octavian become Augustus, the first Roman emperor. You witness the official end of the Roman Republic your father had already killed in practice. The irony isn't lost on you. Your father destroyed the Republic but died before he could replace it with empire. Octavian inherited your father's ambitions and succeeded where Caesar failed. He became what your father dreamed of being, Rome's permanent ruler. But he did it by eliminating Caesar's actual son, by erasing your claim to the inheritance, by building his legitimacy on your political corpse. You die in Alexandria, the city where your father once made love to Cleopatra. Not from assassination or battle, but from fever contracted in the Egyptian marshes. Your death is quiet, unnoticed, politically insignificant. The son of the great Caesar dies like thousands of other Romans far from home. No funeral orations, no monuments, no entry in the historical record. You're buried in an unmarked grave in foreign soil. The dynasty your father thought he was founding dies with you. His name lives on, but carried by others who have no blood claim to his legacy. Augustus uses Caesar's achievements to justify his own power. Future emperors call themselves Caesar while ignoring Caesar's actual descendants. The title becomes generic, divorced from the man who earned it. Your story becomes a footnote in histories that focus on your father's life and Augustus's success, the failed son of a successful father, the weak link in a chain of strong rulers, the reminder that greatness doesn't automatically transfer through bloodline, but your failure teaches an important lesson about Roman power. Inheritance isn't enough. Names don't guarantee authority. Legacy is something each generation must earn, not something they can simply claim. Your father conquered Gaul through military genius. Augustus conquered Rome through political cunning. You conquered nothing because you inherited ambition without ability. The Roman Empire your father envisioned eventually becomes reality, but it's built by men who learned from his mistakes rather than repeated them. Men who understood that power comes from institutions, not individuals. Men who created systems that could survive the death of any single ruler. Your father's greatest achievement wasn't conquering territory or accumulating wealth. It was proving that the Roman Republic was mortal, that ancient traditions could die, that new forms of government were possible. Augustus built on that foundation, but he built with caution your father never showed. He preserved republican forms while exercising imperial power. He shared authority while maintaining ultimate control. He institutionalized succession instead of depending on personal charisma. In the end, your failure served the Roman Empire as much as your father's success. You proved that Caesarism without Caesar was impossible, that the imperial system needed legal foundations, not just personal loyalty, that Rome required institutions stronger than any individual ruler. Your gravestone, if it existed, might read, "Here lies Caesar's son, who taught Rome that being Caesar's son isn't enough." The lesson was learned well. Future Roman emperors rarely depended on their children to continue their legacy. They adopted capable successors instead of trusting to bloodline. They built institutions instead of relying on charisma. They remembered that the son of Julius Caesar died forgotten in Egyptian exile.